So what did they actually do? Let me just tick through. You've been reading the newspapers, so I'll just give you the headlines on it. They, at the most basic level, their cyber operations obtained access to the servers of the Democratic National Committee. They also attacked Russia. They also attacked Republican institutions as well. They did not publicize as widely what they found in Russian institutions, or rather Republican institutions. They also tapped into the personal email accounts of a number of Democratic Party officials. They got into the state and local election rosters in at least 21 countries. We don't know what they did there. It appears that they tried to change some dates and eliminate some people. I have to say at this point, we don't know what the effect of all of this was. As best anyone can determine at this level of investigation, at this stage, they did not succeed in changing votes, so they didn't have that kind of success. Then they selectively leaked information that was intended to embarrass Secretary Clinton. They gave it to WikiLeaks. Remember the WikiLeaks dumps? They gave it also to Russian TV. They gave it to press outlets that are available in the United States. Just as they did in the 1980s, they took some legitimate stories and changed them just enough to give them a different meaning and then spun them into their media outlets. Some of this was picked up by legitimate American media outlets and replayed. Yeah, I tell you, I was in Russia a month before our election. And I can tell you that and at that point, this was in October, and I was there about a week after the director of national intelligence here had publicly published for the first time a report saying Russia is interfering in our election. I can tell you first that they strongly denied this. I met with a vice minister from the Kremlin. By the way, I don't just go there and say, I'd like to see you. It wasn't one of those. I went with a group from the Carnegie Foundation in Washington, which was doing research on Russia, and I was one of 4 people who went, and we met with all levels of Russian society and Russian government members and so forth. Very insightful trip. We were also in Latvia and Ukraine. And Latvia was in many respects the most interesting of these stops. But what I can tell you is that the Russian press, when I was there, the television and the press, which is very controlled by the government. In fact, I met with a journalist who sits with other broadcast journalists, and he told me, you wouldn't believe how sycophantic broadcast journalists are here with Putin. There's an annual meeting of all of the anchors, if you will. It would be like Anderson Cooper and Hallie Jackson and pick your anchors from here, Brian Williams and so forth, Lester Holt. It would be like all of them sitting down with our president. All of them sit down with Putin once a year for a little go-round. And the journalist I spoke with, who's quasi-independent, said, you wouldn't believe how they suck up to Putin. They say things like, oh, Mr. Putin, our viewers just love to see what you say. Our viewers can't wait for you to appear on television. So that's the atmosphere. So it's a very controlled press. What I can tell you is that the Russian media, when I was there, was basically saying to the Russian people, if Mr. Clinton is elected, there will be war with the United States. Prepare your bomb shelters. Now, this is all nonsense, of course, but one of the things I took away was, one of the ironies of this is Putin needs us. He needs us as an adversary. Why? Oil prices are low. Russia is suffering economically. We're easy to blame. So we are, in a way, we're an important part. The adversarial relationship with us is an important part of maintaining his power, if you will. And as I say, it's not clear how all of this affected our election outcome. That's going to take further study. What's clear, and here I'm going to wrap up, is that we need to prevent this. We need to keep it from happening again. It's an assault on the very heart of our democracy, the thing that makes us who we are. And it's another example of Putin trying to bring us down to Russia's level. In fact, you know, the American intelligence community, in a paper, you can find it online, I think it's published on January 6, wrote down in an unclassified form what we know about all of this. And they went so far as to say that at some point during the campaign, the Russian effort tipped toward actually trying to improve Trump's chances. At the beginning, the feeling is that they had no belief, as perhaps most of you didn't, that Trump would ever win. What their objective was to make Clinton's expected election illegitimate. That is, to be able to say, well, that was rigged. I think someone else said that too. So they were trying to sow dissension and confusion in the United States, which they succeeded in doing. I actually think it was probably the most effective, successful, active measure, to go back to that term, that the Russians have carried out in decades. Professionally, I have to admire it. As an American, I have to abhor it.